All right, guys. Welcome. This is the Merc coming live and direct on this last day of 2019. Let me get my microphone at a safe distance so that people can actually hear me properly. So this is actually a big installment because I saw The Rise of Skywalker some time ago. So this isn't as if this just came across my specter. But first of all, before I do anything, this is broadcasting from actually two sources, broadcasting to two sources. Okay, Talkback, as if you're from Talkback, and you're listening to this on the Talkback feed, the Merc has moved to new realms. Okay, so make sure that you go over to the curator reports and you subscribe to the curator reports, because that is where the Merc will be broadcasting going forward. I'm just, for the time being, during the transition, broadcasting to both feeds, if you understand. So I'm broadcasting to both feeds at this point, but in the future I will only be broadcasting. So you will only be able to hear my sultry tones from the curator report page, talking about all things in fandom, and so on and so forth. That being said, also, this is going to be a Rise of Skywalker analysis and, looking forward to the future. But if you want to hear my thoughts on The Mandalorian Season 1, I'll either be doing that later tonight. It's possible I'll be doing that later tonight at 9 p.m. UK, or I will be saving that for tomorrow's broadcast, the 1 p.m. Tomorrow. So it's a double header usually that I might do on Sundays, in the early parts of the year, 1 p.m. and 9 p.m. UK time. But that might actually sort of peter out a little bit, and I'll go back to doing the one-offs, so to speak. Anyway, let's get down to the game. Hit subscribe button, as I said, the curator reports. If you're already there, and if you're on Talkback, get over to the curator report page and hit the subscribe button. Okay, guys, I don't want to say how I saw Rise of Skywalker, because I don't want to promote the means how I saw this movie. Suffice to say that, I wasn't in a theater. I was not in a theater. I saw the movie. Okay, I saw the film, and I'm going to kick this off. I'm not even going to waste any time. It's better than The Last Jedi. Okay, anybody who's a Star Wars fan or a Star Wars person who knows anything about Star Wars will let you know that The Last Jedi was a non-movie. Like, there's no other way to even describe. Like, it's to say, oh, the travesty, we can go into those directions because of the disrespect that was shown to Luke Skywalker, which will never be forgiven as long as Rian Johnson lives or breathes on this planet. We can talk about FaceTime force stuff, the green milk, the Rose Tico situation, the Finn getting sent to Canto by. We can talk for DJ, the guy in the prison who wasn't even the guy that they were looking for, Captain Phasma, just falling off a bridge, and that's the end of her story, and she never really even did anything, blah blah. Listen, guys, the threads are literally endless of not the Snoke getting killed. Last Jedi was a non-film. It's a non-film, okay? But that is not what we are here to discuss. We're here to discuss The Rise of Skywalker. And I'm going to tell you that based on the things that occurred in The Last Jedi, it is very difficult to get worse than that in Star Wars terms. Rise of Skywalker, as far as I'm concerned, is categorically a better Star Wars film than The Last Jedi. Flat out, no conversations to be had. Okay? That's the first thing. However, I will also say, and this is something I'm going to circle back to at the end of this talk. I'm going to circle back to this because I feel like J.J. Abrams and what happened in The Force Awakens laid the foundation for what could be possible in The Last Jedi. Like the kinds of things Rian Johnson was able to even do because of the shaky foundation laid in the first movie. you have to also look at that, because to be honest, like, if Ray, for example, was created in such a way that there was some validation for who the hell she was, how she was able to do, in fact, shouldn't have even been able to do all the things that she was able to do in Force Awakens. Like, there's so many levels to which you could have locked in particular things that even if Ryan Johnson wanted to come and screw it up, it would have been a much more complicated effort on his part than it was when everything was so open-ended. Anyway, and also I wanted to say this before I even get into it. Open-ended is actually a good thing. You see, the thing that what J.J. Abrams did that was actually good is that there were so many ways in which you could have gone. Like, nothing was closed off. So anybody who was coming after Force Awakens, like, there's a lot of things you could have done. The biggest miss for me was the fact that you did not get to see Han Solo, Princess Leia, and Luke Skywalker on screen meet at the same. That to me is sacrilegious. It's sacrilege. Like, that is not even, I don't even consider that fan service. That's just common sense for the sake of the franchise. Like, how do you not have that moment? Anyway, I digress. As I said, I wanted to kick this off by saying categorically Rise of Skywalker is better than Last Jedi. That is not saying that much, but it is definitely something. You know what, guys? Me, guys who, I don't know who's listening, to this now, like, guys who might have known me, who go back to the beginnings of where I began in the realms of Talkback, what was it now? Bloody hell, 12 years ago, the pioneers of this whole internet, YouTube, commentary on fandom. We were the originators, the Merc, Have Hope, Phantom of Hope, Chosen One, all the guys who know where this began. From back in the day, right? When the Merc used to flap his lips and used to talk about the directions in which we were going in fandom. It has now come to pass. I warned it. Have Hope talked. We preached for years. Guys weren't listening. We are oversaturated. I'm watching this movie and I'm saying to myself, my Lord, what the hell is going on? We've got a situation where, like, a franchise of this size that is so established is trying so hard to be Avengers or Marvel, like, that you're not anything. You're not Avengers or Star Wars anymore. And from the beginning of the movie, I said the way it begins is in the middle. I mean, let me just even listen, guys. These are massive spoilers. I'm going to be spoiling the living daylights out of this movie. Okay, I'm going to be spoiling the living daylights out of it. Okay. When you go into this movie, right, and the first thing that you see, you're jumping into the middle of a scene with Kylo the Wino, having some fight with some troops, and he gets the Wayfinder or whatever it is. You don't even know what this thing is or whatever, and I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, look, the action scene was cool. So I'm like, oh, okay, but the action scene doesn't actually mean anything because the guy who's doing the cool moves, I already know has gotten his butt kicked by some girl who just learned how to pick up a lightsaber that day. And the second film, he still needed her help to beat that whole Snoke and the Imperial Guard who were just falling like flies. He said, like, you've got a character who's a whiny guy. So him doing cool moves at any point is, to me, listen, guys, I'm not going to put thoughts into your heads. I'm not going to do Inception on you. I'm just going to tell you that how I feel as the Merc. The Merc doesn't care. The Merc cares not. The Merc doesn't give a toss. Because this guy doesn't mean anything. So anyway, look, the guy starts fighting his fight. And he's like, boom, boom, boom. He gets the Wayfinder. He goes to this planet, Exegol, where he finds the Palpatine, or Sidious, or the Emperor, whichever name you want to use, hooked up to this chair. Very cool scene, guys, by the way. I mean, like, see, this is the thing, right? And this is the part of it that's actually a lot of brain confusion going on for Star Wars fans, because I'm watching this and then part of my brain is thinking that, man, like, this actually looks good and it's like really well made, but the premise is just so crazy. You see what I'm saying? Like you're watching it, like in one part, in the immediacy of the scene, you're like just thinking to yourself that this is actually good, right? Objectively, but subjectively, when you're actually thinking of what this is supposed to be, you're like, what is this again? Anyway, so we go in and we're watching this movie. Well, I'm watching this movie by the means that I do not want to put out there. And the emperor now comes to like, you know, every voice you've heard in your head, blah, 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 blah. Then he talks about finding Rey and, you know, she is not what she seems. And I'm like, oh my God, like, first of all, what is this guy even doing here? Like, you know, the moment you see this guy, you're thinking that this actually completely negates everything that Luke Skywalker did and Anakin did. Like all the stuff that happened in episode 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6, all the stuff that happened on the second Death Star, the sacrifice, Luke refusing to fight Darth Vader and believing in the goodness in him and turning him back from the dark to the light, and Vader taking the Emperor when the Emperor was blasting the lightning at Luke and throwing him down that like power shaft or whatever it was, and the Emperor just exploding into, he exploded, guys. The guy is like full on dead. Okay. And the second part of it is like, you're going to like ruins of a Death Star that we saw with our own 2 eyes completely disintegrate. Go and watch, just go on, it's on bloody YouTube, guys. It's on bloody YouTube. Like you just go into YouTube and just click on it and just type in second Death Star Return of the Jedi explosion. And explain to me how any piece of that Death Star collapses down to a planet somewhere in the ocean. That's not even, like, there were entire massive sections of the Death Star in Exegol, guys. So I'm just, you see, that this is the thing for me. It's like, even if you want to do this, and I'm supposed to buy this, and I'm desperately trying to buy it, you know, as a fan or whatever, you've got to make it like make some kind of sense. Like, I mean, and you know what? At the end of this, I'm going to actually tell you what I think they should have done if they really wanted to go in this direction. You know what? Can it? I'm actually going to just say it now. For me, right? If you're going to go in this direction, right, of like having some big puppet master Wizard of Oz type thing, go with Plagueis. We haven't seen him, and he's at least above Sidious, and Sidious, aka Palpatine, when he was in Revenge of the Sith and he was talking about some might consider unnatural, you know, that whole business. He's talking about what Plagueis was trying to learn, that he was learning, you know, about basically being able to cheat death. Why not just catch up some plot story where it's really Plagueis that has come back from the dead, who we've not seen before, you know, and after the demise of what's his face, Sidious or whatever, Palpatine, it's Plagueis who's the guy that from the depths of death or the abyss has been reassembling himself or bringing himself back to life. I mean, the reason why I'm saying this is that there's so many ways you could have gone, right? And for me, right, the idea of and I'm going to be all over the place, guys, so just bear with me. The idea of Rey being Palpatine's daughter is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous, because then what we're saying is, oh, his granddaughter. So what you're saying is that Palpatine, first of all, he had a child while he was the emperor, which is nuts in and of itself. But let's say he just conjured up a child, like he didn't even have sex or anything. He just magics this child into existence, which would also be crazy. Why didn't his son be the heir and have powers? Why is it your granddaughter? You see what I'm saying? Like your son just lived a normal life. Like, first of all, why is your son living a normal life? Like you're the emperor who, or maybe, oh, you know what? This is so crazy. Okay, so maybe because the emperor was bad, anybody finding out that his son existed, he would have probably been killed. as the spawn of the evil emperor. Okay, so I'll roll with that. So you're in a hiding, but then I don't understand why you wouldn't be the guy, and why is it your granddaughter? Anyway, that being said, still, guys, I'm just like, okay, well, Rey being able to do all the crazy stuff that she was doing in what they called in Force Awakens, still doesn't make sense because she needs to have some kind of training. She needs to have some kind of training, you know? So I'm looking at it and I'm like saying that, hey, even if you have all these powers, it's only potential. Like when you're looking at Anakin had a ton of potential. Luke had a ton of potential. You still need to be trained how to use your potential. And not only that, you have to question, like, how does Rey even know the Force powers? You know what I'm saying? You don't just make this stuff up. It's like you need to even know that, hey, there is such a Force power known as mind control for you to even try doing mind control. You don't just spontaneously do mind control. Who taught you how to force heal? Who taught you that? If you were taught that by Princess Leia, why in the name of all that is good on this planet have Jedi's not been using force heal for the last like six, what are we now on? 7 films. You see what I'm saying? Like it's ridiculous. Like you had to have been taught force heal from someone. So if you were taught force heal from someone, that someone pre-existed Rey, right? And that someone had to have learned it from somewhere. The only person Jedi left who's teaching Rey anything is Princess Leia. Princess Leia was taught by Luke Skywalker. And unless you're arguing that Jedis can make up force powers themselves, that means by logic, Leia learned force heal. Like Rey learned force heal from Leia. Leia learned force heal from Luke. Luke learned force heal from Yoda. So why have we not been using force heal all this time? And why didn't Yoda teach Qui-Gon force heal? And then Qui-Gon teach Obi-Wan force heal so that Obi-Wan could have healed him when Darth Maul stabbed him in Phantom Menace. You see, so that it's just an entire like thread that just goes out the window. Okay. So what I was thinking was like, if you really wanted to make this work, have it be a possession thing. That Plagueis came back from the dead through Rey. And that's the reason why Rey doesn't even have parents, because she's actually Plagueis. You see what I'm saying? And Plagueis is like manifesting himself through her. I mean, look, what this would require is one of the craziest twists that you're going to see. Well, maybe not craziest, but it will be crazy for Star Wars, is that Rey actually, A, is evil, and B, is actually Plagueis and is not like a regular human being. And that she actually comes to full fruition in, you wouldn't even call it Rise of Skywalker, you call it, right? If you wanted to call it Rise of Skywalker, you would get another Skywalker that nobody's even seen before, which is what I think George Lucas wanted to do, who would go up against Plagueis, because this new Skywalker character knows that it's Plagueis that's trying to come back from the dead, okay? Boom, okay? Then you have a new villain. Rey's is going to turn evil. Oh, you know what it could be? Boom, Kylo Ren is the Rise of Skywalker, because this movie could be his redemption, whereby he then realizes through his own investigations who Rey really is, and that Rey is Plagueis, and then through some story arc you could go down, Ben Solo actually in the end will change his name to Skywalker or something, or whatever. Listen, I'm just trying to work with what they gave us. You know what I'm saying? But all I'm trying to say here is that Palpatine is not the answer. He just is not the answer. Anyway, so I'm watching this thing. You got Palpatine, then he said, oh, go, blah, 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 blah. And then you go to some like, what's it called, training session with Rey in like a forest. And I'm like, give me a break. Guys, what are you training for? What are you training for? You've not lost any fights. You only train in these movies when we've seen you get bested by someone, or come up against something that is insurmountable and then you need to go and train. This is 101 basic ABC 1, 2, 3 storytelling. From action movies, the cheesiest of action movies, to the best of epics. Gladiator, Lord of the Rings, Matrix. the original Star Wars trilogy, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Blood Sports, well, Die Hard wasn't even that kind of, but Die Hard too, because he had to go and like get new weapons and stuff, you know, Rambo, Rocky, you know, bloody Marked for Death, Hard to Kill. Because I just keep naming these. You gotta go. First of all, the bad guy establishes himself as big time, right? The good guy gets himself served up. Then he has to go away to either his master or find a master. And the guy goes away for a couple of years, goes and gets trained. Batman Begins. You know, it's not rocket science, guys. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, what are you training for? She's jumping over, doing flips blindly, like with a mask, like hitting laser beams and whatever. And she's doing everything so easily. She's floating in the sky with a bunch of rocks and somersaulting out of it. I'm like, this is the most powerful, this Jedi. And if you even can even call her a Jedi, because she hasn't even trained as a Jedi. This Jedi is the most powerful Jedi being, thing that has ever existed in the entire Star Wars universe. And I'm talking about Rey is the most powerful. So I'm just like, oh my God, like there is no reason to be training. There's absolutely no reason, guys, you know? Anyway, so I'm watching this movie. She's training, and the person who's training her is Leia. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, since when did Leia become a Jedi, guys? We know that she's force sensitive, but like, since at what point? I'm going to explain to you how they explain it later in this movie, because they know that they've not given us any inkling for the last 8 films as to how Leia would have anything to do with training a Jedi. Most that we've seen happen in Last Jedi, where she was floating through space, which again, that was crazy. I mean, I was actually one of the people who didn't mind that as much as other people. Like some other people were literally losing their minds over that. And I was like, you know what, guys, that is pretty much the least of the issues that you've got to be worrying about in Last Jedi. I digress. So we're here, boom, boom, boom. She trains, and you know, Poe and Finn come in and they start this squabbling thing, and these people squabble for the entire movie. I don't understand. I'm like, guys, you know what? Squabbling is like once in a while. You can't just argue for the entire film. You know, that's like a once in a while thing to spice things up. You can't just be arguing for the whole movie. So anyway, if Poe tells them, we give this whole speech about Exegol, the Emperor, blah blah blah, and then we get one of our first only glimpses of Rose Tico, because she pops in and then pops out. Very disgraceful what they did to that character. And let me just go into a little digression here again, like the Rose Tico character and about the way that Finn overall has been handled. Like, you know, this is the thing that I don't like. You know, when we're talking about SJWs and people are going, oh, SJWs and virtue signaling and go woke, go broke and la 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 la. I'm like, oh, that's all well and good. But when you watch these films, you see the level of pandering involved. I'm just like, it's better not to have a black character in Star Wars than to have a black character like Finn, who, if you take Finn out of this trilogy, things don't really change that much. Because all he does is spend his time running after Rey and screaming, Rey, Rey. Rey is not interested. She has zero interest in you, which in and of itself is crazy, because by the nature of the way these stories work, if you create a male character who's single and a female character who's single, and though they're both relatively attractive, young, running around, you know, the male guy is like trying to help her. She doesn't want his help, but they're essentially supporting each other. And there's no romance. The romance you're trying to make me buy is a romance between that female character and some bad guy who really hasn't done anything for her but like preach and try and kill her. That is who she's in love with. Like, first of all, guys, what kind of message is that sending to the little girls that they're supposedly trying to grasp into the audience of Star Wars? That the guy who runs around trying to save your life and cares about you is not the one that you fall in love with. You fall in love with the psychotic maniac who you watch kill his own father and throw him off a bridge and command troops to murder villagers and try and kill you multiple times. That's the guy you fall for? That's the guy? That's the guy that you reserve your big kiss for? You never kissed Finn. You kissed him on the forehead. Really, guy? Like, I'm just, and for me, when I look at it, I'm like, yo, this is so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Like, you might as well not have put that thread in there. Don't put that thread in there. Don't put that thread of Finn possibly, like, just make him, he's a stormtrooper, he's a guy, there is no romance possible. Just leave it out. Just leave it out. Because you're sort of confused. It's confusing me as the viewer watching, because I'm like, I know what's supposed to be happening here, but obviously the writers or the director or both or whatever, producer or whoever's involved doesn't want these two characters to really get together for whatever reason. I don't want to, verbalize, but you know what I'm talking about. So what do you do in the second movie? The first movie ends, you give him a kiss on the head. The second movie, after this guy comes out of a bloody coma that he's in because he was trying to save your life, he comes out of a coma, you're not even there, and he gets hitched up with Rose, who then becomes his pseudo love interest for that movie, out of the left field. Then for the third movie, you find a black female character for him to connect with out of left field while he's still running after Rey, going, Rey, 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 Rey. I'm like, get the hell out of here, guys. What the hell is this? Seriously, are we having a laugh here? I mean, and people are actually accepting this. This is the part of it that gets me about Star Wars, guys. And the reason why I'm actually ashamed to be a Star Wars fan. You're watching this and you're actually accepting it. Like, you're like, yep, that's fine. Yep, no, perfectly reasonable, guys. Perfectly reasonable. I get it. It's just like, he's just trying to like show different characters and all the things that the different, why do you have to be romantic? There's no reason to be romantic. Like, Rey loves Kylo and Finn is just a friend. Why can't a man and a girl be friends? Get the hell out of here, guys. Come on. Stop it. Behave. Be realistic. And for me, the sort of writing gymnastics being done to keep Finn and Rey apart is so glaring that when I'm watching Rise of Skywalker and I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is part of the reason why it doesn't work, because by part 3, that is the romantic relationship. And the jilted guy has to be Kylo. He's the one who's in love with Rey that can't get Rey to love him back. And in the final act to try and do it, he gives his life if you want to do that. And she kisses him on the cheek, or he kisses her before he brings her to life. Like in Superman 1, where she kissed Christopher Reeve in the pool before she took the kryptonite off his neck. And then he said, why did you kiss me first? Because he said, and then she says, because I didn't think you'd let me do it later. Boom. That is exactly how the Kylo thing goes, because Rey is actually in love with Finn because he deserves it. And that's a much better message to the kids. That if a guy does that for you and like is that committed and loyal, that is who you give your attention to. Like, does that make sense? Am I talking gibberish here? But because of whatever like social norms or status quo we have in the world, where an interracial relationship in a major motion picture for families is a problem, You know, we can't have like just logic play through or give a positive message to the children. Oh, come on. Come on. Why is it always got to be a conspiracy, man? Come on. It's just a movie. Come on, Merc. It's just a movie. Come on, stop it. Stop it, man. It's just a movie. Yeah, really? Just a movie. Anyway, so we get back into this picture and I'm watching this thing and I'm like, yo, I like, this is all ridiculous to me. It's like Hawks, who was a clown in like part two, they turned this guy into a clown. So, because he's such a clown, they had to bring like another guy into the movie to be above him, who's not a clown. And then Hawks turns out that he's the spy, and then he gets with his face blown, like he's just blown away like a joke, by that other dude. And guys, when next you watch Rise of Skywalker, I want you to notice something which I thought was pretty crazy. Why is it that every time that new guy, I can't remember what the hell his name is, like the new admiral guy or head bad guy, he says a line and then he turns and walks away really quickly? Did you notice that? I actually started watching and saying that, you know what? There is no reason while he's talking, right? I'll be thinking in my head that there is no reason why he says he finishes this line he's saying and walks away. But I know he's going to finish this line and he's going to walk away. And I thought he finishes his line and he turns and he walks away really quickly. I'm like, that is so weird. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. So the next time you watch the movie, just pay attention to that. So, watching this thing, and I'm like, okay, cool. So we've got that going on. Rey now has her thing. And the movie is moving so quickly that I actually can't focus on anything that's happening. We get to some like desert planets and they meet what they call it, Lando. And Lando is dressed exactly the same way that Lando was dressed in Empire Strikes Back, on Bespin, and in Return of the Jedi. That was bloody 40 years ago, guys. Why are you wearing the same clothes? And he's bigger, so that means that you've been getting a tailor to make bigger and bigger versions of the exact same outfit. Are you kidding me? There's something wrong with you, man. Like you haven't moved on. You haven't developed as a man. You're still rolling like that, Lando. Really? Same thing as Han Solo in Force Awakens. I'm like, Han, why are you wearing the same clothes you were wearing 40 years ago? Why are you still a smuggler? And you're a deadbeat father as well. Like, what did you do with your son? Like, how did you let that happen? You're running around smuggling while Princess Leia is like a general and your son is become a Sith Lord? Oh my days. Anyway, so they meet Lando that this guy is dressed in the same outfit. And I'm like, listen, guys, this guy should have gone to like Harvey Nichols or like Macy's or something, got himself a new set of threads, at least update your game. The guy even has the same bloody haircut. The same pimping haircut, like the Snoop haircut, perm, and a cape. Listen, man, that guy was a pimp, man. Like, this guy had a cape and a perm. Okay, and he still got it now? For the love of all that is good. And second of all, why are you even on that planet? What are you even doing there? All right, anyway. So he gives them the thing and they go and then they fall into some like pits, like quicksand pits. And after they fall into the quicksand pit, the quicksand pit they fall into is exactly where they need to be. And this brings me on to another problem with this movie. So they fall into this thing and they find they even find a dagger, like the Sith dagger, which is like is a marker to where they find a Sith dagger which has like writing on it, and like C-3PO isn't allowed to read it because it's in Sith language and all that sort of nonsense. They see some monster in there, and then Rey for the first time uses Force Heal, which we've never seen before. And that is obviously to preempt what's going to happen later, which, I'll talk about. And they then go on another, so they found the dagger and they're now going to go to use the dagger to find another thing. I'm just like, as many people have said, if you've listened to the commentary that have been put out there, it's like a bloody video game. This is like video game storytelling, where you have like quests and everybody's on a little quest, and the quest leads you to another quest. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, what exactly is this supposed to be? And so I'm watching this thing and I'm like, okay, so this is not the end. So we found this. We now have to go and find another thing. So they now find that, and then they go to another planet to find somebody who's going to be able to change C3PO's coding so that, if I even want to find this, Boba Frick is the guy's name. Boba Frick. Boba Frick. Is anybody listening in? Like, can you tell me, how do you say that guy's name? Is it Boba Frick or Boba Frick? Boba Frick, right? I think. Just type it in the comments if anybody's listening live. Anyway, so whatever this character's name is, Boba Frick or whatever, they go to this guy's planet, and on that planet they find this other character that had a hard relationship with Poe. And I'm like, there are so many things going on. That planet was actually pretty cool, by the way. Like, it was like it's the World War II town. Like, you know how if like the Nazis came and like occupied a town and they're like shooting and pulling people out of their houses and everything. And it sort of feels a bit like, I don't know, it's like, you see moments like that, right? And I'm just like, man, Star Wars could have been good, man. This whole trilogy could have actually been good, because you keep getting these little moments in the movie, and you're like I said, the first scene with the whole Palpatine thing, I'm like, I don't like the content of it. Like, I don't like what it actually is, like what's happening. But the scene itself is really cool. Like, I'm watching, I'm like, this is actually, if I was behind the story, like I was actually with it, the story, I'm like, this is actually bloody cool. Like, it's, same thing with everything that you're seeing. Like, it's all very well produced, and like there's a lot of cool things about production, but it's the actual content of the stuff. Like, what's actually happening is the problem. So you're in this town, and this lady, she was in bloody Felicity or something. Oh, so Finn had a thing with he tells her, they meet Boba Frick, who then tells C3PO that he has to delete his memory in order to reboot him so he can read Sith code. And then that means he's going to forget about everything. And then the guy now looks at this bunch of dudes and says, I want to take a last look at my friends. And I'm like, C3PO, are you a joker? How are these guys your friends? Your friends are Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and Chewie, and R2-D2. You barely know these other guys. How are they your friends? Like, the problem is that you almost like you want to have this epic line, but you've killed everybody, and the story is not going to support this epic line, but you still put the line in anyway, and it has no resonance or weight in the moment as you're watching it, because you're like, who cares? Anyway. So I'm watching this thing, and like, then I erase this guy's memory, and then he tells them where Exegol is, or where the dagger can be used, or Exo. I don't know. So they go to the Endor. Thank you. It's Endor, and some bits of this planet of the Death Star fell in Endor somewhere, in some ocean, raging sea or something. So they now need to get onto like a Star Destroyer or something, and they can't obviously get on there because it's a Empire or it's a First Order ship. So then before that, they've talked to this lady that knows Poe, and she wanted to go on some adventure with this sort of medallion that she had, or something that allows you passage through any First Order barrier or ship or something which was like, and she then just gives it to Paul to use to get onto the ship. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, what are the odds that this woman would have the exact thing that these people need at the exact moment to do what they need to do? What, like how they fell into a quicksand pit and fell into the exact cave with the exact thing that they needed to do the next thing that they needed to do. Guys, people are just accepting this. I'm just like, even a cartoon isn't that contrived. Like, it's just even a cartoon. So I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my God, listen, yo, my brain is frazzling. You hear what I'm saying? It is frazzling. So I'm going in there, and, and then they go to this planet, and I think it's Endor, and then there's these people on the hostess, and this is where we meet the black character who is now Finn's new partner, because clearly they can't develop the Finn and Rey love story because they haven't done anything with that, which is weird. This thing should have been by now at its peak. What? Oh my God! Listen, as I'm even thinking about it, it's just annoying me. I'm just thinking, you're crippling your own story. Like, do you realize, guys, that a Finn Rey love story could have actually carried the trilogy on its own? Twilight was carried by a love story. Like, it was carried by a love story that couldn't be between a vampire and a human who wanted. This trilogy could have been carried by that. Like, you could have actually propelled the story forward. But they said no. So I'm looking at this movie and I'm like, okay, this lady comes in and then she happens to be, by some convenience, happens to be a former stormtrooper as well, who has her own ex-code name, as Finn was FN, whatever the hell he was. And then they compare stories. And I'm like, get the hell out of here. So now these guys are besties now. So now no need to worry about Rey. As far as the audience is brain, okay, he's been taking care of another minority female character that nobody's going to complain about them having any kind of connection or relationship. We're good. We have the Asian and the black guy in part 2. We bring the black girl and the black guy in part 3. No, listen, I'm all fine with that if it works for the story. But I'm like, when you're screwing up your own story to do that sort of thing, and then you're claiming that you have diversity, but the story is still being driven by white female character, then what is the diversity? Or they're saying that it's diverse because Rey is a woman. Is that the diversity? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy because you're not even allowing all these different kinds of people that you've populated the movie with to meaningfully participate in the main narrative. The way that Han Solo, Princess Leia, and all those guys meaningfully participated in the main story thread of Luke Skywalker. Rey needs no one. She needs no help. She needs nothing from anybody. So when you're watching these films, or when you're watching Rise of Skywalker, there really is never a threat. There is no point when I'm watching that I'm feeling nervous about Rey. I'm like, oh my God, is she going to make it? The one time when, Kylo catches up to her, towards later in the film, and they have that big fight on the freighter or whatever it is. And by the way, Rey rode a wave with some rickety raft, having never gone on the, she's a scavenger in the desert, so she has no knowledge of like water and all that sort of stuff. And she did something that even the people who were living on the planet weren't able to do. But of course, it's the Force. Anyway, so I'm watching this thing, and then, Kylo comes, they have some fight, blah, 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 yada, 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 and Kylo actually wins this one, like, in theory, and Rey, like, falls on the floor and, like, goes, ah, and even me, I was like, whoa, Rey actually didn't win a fight. And believe me, Kylo fought hard. It wasn't like it was easy. So she's on the front. I'm like, oh my goodness, okay. Is Rey, she actually going to officially lose this? Wow, but no. Leia now calls Ben's name. He drops his lightsaber. For what reason? I'm like, dude, I guess, yes, she could call it, but he drops his saber. And Rey, seeing a guy has dropped his weapon, doesn't like think what's going on. She picks it up and stabs him. And then Princess Leia dies, and then Rey feels that in the Force, and then heals Kylo the way she healed that monster. And I'm like, what the? At that point, I'm like, just thinking to myself, I don't know what I'm watching anymore. That was what I was thinking. I was like, I have no idea what I'm watching now. Like, this is because things are now just happening. So I don't know what I am seeing. They go in there, and I'm just going to zoom forward now because I just want to just recap this. They go in there, and as I'm sure everybody knows, Rey is actually a Palpatine, as I said earlier with the father thing, la 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 la. She uses some other crazy force power where she's able to teleport a saber from her to Kylo, who's in another part of this place, which brings me on to another ridiculous thing, which is the Knights of Ren, who walk around this movie doing absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So they're doing Knights of Ren. He kills his own crew with a lightsaber that's teleported to him. And again, with that move, I'm like, do you know the amount of things that could have been done with force teleports in all the other 8 films? I mean, there was earlier in the movie where people can reach into your side of the force FaceTime and pull things into their side. So you've got a situation. I mean, we had hints of that with the water in Last Jedi when he was force chatting with Rey, when Kylo was force chatting with Rey. But now, you know, he pulls beads off Rey's neck and pulls them into his side of it. And I'm like, guys, do you realize that the levels of disruption these force powers' existence caused to the whole timeline and canon of Star Wars from the first movie to this one? That's really, like, because then you're just thinking that where have all these powers been? Why didn't anybody else use any of these powers? Or is it that? Let me say this, because people say, "Oh, but she's the most powerful because she's Palpatine's daughter. She's the Emperor's daughter." Then why didn't the Emperor ever use any of these things or teach them to his greatest pupil, Vader? If anything, you're going to give Vader all the tools necessary to do what he's got to do. Anyway, you know, the movie goes to an end. She uses 2 sabers with all the Jedi's powers and deflects them onto the Emperor. I'm looking at the Emperor and thinking, dude, have you not learned your lesson? You got crumbled by your own lightning in Return of the Jedi. You know, why would you be shooting sort of electricity at somebody? You can see that the electricity is being deflected back on you and you're dying. You don't just stop shooting. Does that make any sense? So anyway, the guy dies when she does a cross saber thing, kills him. Kylo comes out, gives his life force to her because she dies when she killed the Emperor. Gives his life force to her, and then they kiss. And I'm like, the most awkward kiss in the history of movies, because like, first of all, this was not even earned. This makes no sense whatsoever. When and how were these guys ever attracted to each other to that degree? It's like, well, you just did that because you were just doing that. There is no basis for it, you know. And that's not to even I'm even forgetting to talk about the whole space battle that is raging while these guys are doing this, where you've got all these Star Destroyers that can't leave the planet and go and start destroying things because only one of the ships has a navigation beacon. Since, like, they're just pulling things out of, what is a navigation beacon? Like, when did that have any bearing on a ship being able to fly in Star Wars? Anyway, like, an Emperor, if you're gonna forget even emperor, just engineering of the empire or the first order or final order or whatever order you want to look at. What kind of engineering do you have whereby even if you have 100 star destroyers or 1,000 star destroyers, or however many star destroyers there were, you can't do anything without the navigation of one star destroyer? That makes you strategically very weak. Because anybody know would then who's fighting your army would just be like, listen, forget everybody else. We just need to get to that one with the navigation beacon, cripple that, take that thing out, take it out, and then they're wrapped. They're done. Anyway, they do take it out, and then the ships don't leave, and then the Lando comes with like 1,000 ships from like all around the galaxy, and they fight and they destroy, and they win, and Kylo dies, and then there was this whole thing where Kylo met Han Solo, which I did not mind. That wasn't an issue for me, because it wasn't like a Force ghost. It was like a, in his mind, Force ghost thing with Luke was, obviously a attack on Rian Johnson and The Last Jedi, because he catches the lightsaber and says that, this is something to be respected. But then the whole Force ghost catching things, and he raises his X-wing out of the water and gives it to Rey, which is what Rey used to, like, if the Force ghost can do all of this stuff, people have mentioned, like, then why don't they just fight the Emperor? Like, why are they letting physical people fight any of these people? You're already a ghost, so they can't kill you twice. And if you have the power to affect things in the physical plane, then you might as well just go and fight the Emperor yourself. These people are like, so much like that. Obviously, like, that's what you do. Anyway, so watching this thing that happens, Rey then Emperor gets destroyed again, second time, negating Anakin and Luke's sacrifice. Rey is basically there for the chosen one. So the whole galaxy was actually saved by a Palpatine, not a Skywalker. So the movie should have been called Rise of Palpatine, She then goes to Tatooine, meets some old lady. The old lady asks her who she is. She says, she takes the name, but says Rey Skywalker, looks behind, sees Luke and Leia, Force Ghost, the end. Guys, I really, really don't know where they go with this. Like, clearly they just have to take a break from the films, and just focus on the TVs. Let me tell you this, right? Mandalorian to me is one of my favorite TV shows in a long time. I've enjoyed it. So I've enjoyed it so much, it's scary. People say that, oh, it's because you don't are bad and you don't like the film. I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm like, even if the films were good, Mandalorian is still good, and it destroys these films, destroys them. Anyway, I've got this the last 5 minutes. Let me just wrap up now. As I said, guys, I'm going to be broadcasting on these airwaves daily at 1 p.m. UK time when I can. It's not always going to be happening. So, just keep your ears to the ground if I'm going to be here. It could be 1 p.m., it could be 9 p.m., but as we go, I'll settle it on a time that works. I will just be talking about all things in fandom. Tomorrow, I will be going in depth on my thoughts on The Mandalorian season 1, talking about all those things. So stay tuned on that. Remember to hit the subscribe button to subscribe to this channel, and share the video if you so wish to people who might be interested in hearing the ramblings of a lost soul. And with that, I bid you adieu.